Good morning, Ben. Matt. How you doing? Good. All right, good morning. How's everybody this morning? Good. Everybody all getting dried out from yesterday's waterlog? Yeah. So this week's code of conduct is to respect the property of others. This is a good reminder, when we're out there digging around facilities, digging around other people's vaults, digging next to people's property, such as their house, driveways, mailboxes, whatever it may be. We got to be really respectful to our work environment where our job sites are located, as well as the traveling public. So it's just it's a good reminder just to stop and reflect quickly of just put yourself in their shoes. If you had somebody digging right next to your house, how would you like it if they damage something of yours? So just something to think about this coming week, to respect the property of others. Excellent job this week. We went from kind of a high frequency of incidents to this week we didn't have any incidents whatsoever. So excellent job. Let's keep that tolerance where it needs to be. Let's keep that awareness where it needs to be on that safety level, because again, like I said all week on my site visits, October's frequency, this is our most incident prone month, is October. So let's hopefully we got about 2 more weeks left of October, 2 full more weeks of October. So let's really focus, hone in, raise that awareness, really put that tolerance where we need to have it so everyone can go home safe and sound. We don't have to have any incidents out there on our projects. This week, I was on a conference call with the Agency of Vermont, and a bunch of contractors throughout the state have been getting issued tickets. So I kind of want to do a quick compliance training on silica awareness and where it really affects us, and something that we need to really make sure we hone in and don't get too complacent when it comes to controlling dust, especially when we're using the handheld power saws. So I quickly kind of outsourced some training here that OSHA was nice enough to actually conduct for us. It's a nice little video. It kind of talks quickly about the table and really it's most important to us about how we're using our target saws, our handheld power saws, and how to properly conduct dust. We do have plenty of other means and methods that we can utilize, but this is the preferred from the table one, how to control dust. So I'll fire this video up. It's just a quick 5-minute
Safety and Health Administration requires employers to limit workers' exposure to respirable crystalline silica on the job. This is one of a series of videos showing dust control methods that OSHA specifies for many common construction tasks in Table 1 of the Respirable Crystalline Silica Standard for Construction. When used properly, these methods are effective in limiting workers' exposure to respirable crystalline silica dust. This video describes how to fully and properly use an integrated water delivery system to control dust when using a handheld power saw to cut materials that contain crystalline silica. Many handheld power saws have a built-in water delivery system that applies water to the saw blade. The water reduces wear of the blade and prevents the blade from overheating. Applying water to the blade can also effectively control dust when cutting material containing crystalline silica. To comply with Table 1, the water delivery system must be integrated with the saw and must continuously feed water to the blade. An integrated water delivery system is one that was supplied by the equipment manufacturer and developed to be used with the specific make and model of the tool. An integrated water delivery system for a handheld power saw typically consists of a water source, connectors, hose, and nozzle. The water source can be a pressurized tank or a hose connected to a faucet. Some handheld power saws have an integrated water pump. It's important to correctly operate and maintain the water delivery system. When the water delivery system is not working properly, dust is not effectively controlled. With regular use, debris can clog the pump, hoses can become pinched, and hose connections may fail. When applying water to the blade, the operator should also make sure that the amount of water is sufficient to minimize release of visible dust. To make sure a continuous stream of water reaches the blade, the saw operator should regularly check nozzles for damage, check water pressure, remove any clogs, and ensure that the hoses and connections are intact and working correctly. When using a portable water supply, the saw operator should make sure, before starting to cut, that enough water for the saw is available to apply a steady stream to the saw blade while cutting. The saw must also be operated and maintained according to the manufacturer's instructions to minimize dust emissions. Instructions often specify the following: the type and diameter of the blade, the recommended amount of water to apply to the blade, procedures for checking the blade for wear or damage, and a maintenance schedule. Any slurry produced should be cleaned up to prevent the slurry from drying and releasing silica dust into the air. As long as the integrated water delivery system is fully and properly implemented on the handheld power saw and the task is performed outdoors for 4 hours or less during a shift, the saw operator and workers who are assisting the saw operator are not required to wear respirators. If the task is performed outdoors for more than 4 hours during a shift, or indoors, or in an enclosed area for any length of time, the saw operator and workers assisting the saw operator must use respirators with an assigned protection factor of at least 10. When respirators are required, they must be put on before beginning the task and must be worn the entire time the task is performed. When respirators are used, the employer must comply with OSHA's respiratory protection standard. Using a handheld power saw indoors or in an enclosed area requires an exhaust method, such as a portable fan, as needed to minimize the accumulation of visible airborne dust. Be sure that any exhaust method chosen moves airborne dust away from workers and does not block an exit route. Employers who fully and properly implement the dust control methods specified by OSHA in Table 1 are not required to measure the saw operator's exposure to respirable crystalline silica or the exposure of other workers assisting with the task. The respirable crystalline silica standard for construction also includes additional requirements to protect workers exposed to respirable crystalline silica. Many of these requirements apply whether employers are using a dust control method specified by OSHA in Table 1 or an alternative dust control method. More information on the standard's requirements to protect workers exposed to respirable crystalline silica, including information on specified exposure control methods for other common construction tasks, can be found at www.
So it's kind of a nice little compliance thing with the table. The biggest thing is if you find yourself kind of deviating from the plan, please let me know so we can go out and do some air sampling so we can get 100% compliance. This standard's kind of a moving target. OSHA's currently trying to gather more information from contractors to make their table larger. That it's more flexible for us out there in the field. So if you find yourselves really in some unique situation where cutting, chipping, a lot of concrete work that's definitely more than 4 hours, please let me know ahead of time so I can do a little air sampling so I can make sure that we're meeting these requirements in the standard. And that's where VOSHA is getting a lot of contractors out there. Is the work's being performed and the air monitoring is not. So a lot of that is just coordination between safety and within the project schedule. So just wanted to raise that awareness out there. It's something that definitely in Burlington, a lot of the work's done in Burlington is the one that's getting kind of hit the most when it comes to the silica standard. So again, keep the dust down as much as we can out there. It is a chronic exposure, something that's not going to harm you today. It's going to harm you 30 years from now. So let's really try to focus on keeping that dust down. Is there any questions?
Okay, I got a question. Can you clarify the indoor, outdoor, and what the respiratory protection was? I was confused by that chart.
So out, as long as it's done outdoor, less than 4 hours, you don't need any respiratory protection whatsoever. No dust mask, half-face respirator. If it's inside, you do.
Right. And that can be either a respirator or a mask.
Yeah, just a dust mask. It just needs to have an air purifying rating of 10. And actually, the respirators that we purchased downstairs have it of 20. So we've kind of gone above and beyond the standard with our just regular dust masks.
It got a little confusing with all the.
Yeah, but inside, if we're cutting inside, we still need to have some type of ventilation.
Even if you use water, you need ventilation. And if you go over 4 hours,
Yeah.
you need respiratory
Yeah.
protection.
And one of the reasons for the ventilation, especially if you're using this cutoff saw, you're using a gas-powered saw, the fumes of the saw as well. So it's the dust and the fumes.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
What if you find yourself in a situation where you don't have a hose hooked up to, you don't have a water source, you use a pump sprayer or something?
Yes, pump sprayers, any type of water system that we can come up and develop. Doesn't have to be an actual like tied into a water line.
That video said it had to be integrated.
Yeah,
If it's got it on it, right?
yeah. You know, you're using a pump sprayer next to a target saw. We should try to get away from that as much as possible. But if you have to do it, let me know so I can do some air sampling. Because I need to have the documentation that I did a study that a man pumping the water with that type of sprayer needs to have. I need to have the documentation for compliance reasons. We might be keeping the dust down, but for compliance reason against FOSHA, I need to have that study done saying that we know for sure we're not overexposing our workers to crystalline silica using that method.
So the little cordless tanks are okay.
Cordless tanks are okay, yeah, but if the physical, we're pumping and spraying like we do. I need to know when we're doing that so I can go on and hopefully do a couple of case studies so I can have that documentation on my end. If a compliance officer such as John Callan down in Burlington sees it, he might stop and open up an investigation.
So when OSHA is coming on site, are they like asking the guys how long they've been working for?
Right.
Know that they're,
It's all case by case. It's all whatever compliance officer shows up, but they see dust, they're stopping and they're probing around.
so if we can make an effort to minimize the dust.
Yeah. Yeah, but still, I would love to get the data so we have as many options as possible. So, I'm going to hopefully start doing some more air sampling so we can have as many means and methods as possible that we are in compliance also with the standard.
I think chipping's the bigger deal than really.
Chipping is, and they're getting a lot of the masonry contractors right now is what they're doing. But we still have exposure out there as how much floor cutting we do on sidewalks and things like that. Again, this is our most frequent use is using as a cutoff saw as long as we're using some type of water.
It's hard to imagine more than 4 hours cutting.
Yes.
Of real cutting,
Real
I guess,
cutting.
right?
Yes, it's real cutting for an 8-hour day. Yeah.
Your hands would be vibrating by then. Okay. Hey, thanks, Matt. Got some announcements, a couple new hires. We got Kendall Zeno and Shawnee Bean. You're Kendall. Okay, welcome, Kendall. And Shawnee, okay, welcome. So hopefully everyone will introduce themselves to you guys, and you'll start to put a face to everybody. So, and then best wishes to Dave Fortier. He'll be off. Has he left yet? Yeah.
He hasn't. Today's his last day.
Yeah, that's what I heard. So he's off for some training for the as part of his duties for the Vermont International Guard.
Through December, I think.
Yes, for several weeks. Yep. So let's see. Roll that down. There we go. And for this week, we are profiling the Williston STP HES 5512. So that's the contract number for VTrans, and it's the Route 2A improvements over here in Williston. And we're contracted with VTrans for a 4,319 foot long section of Route 2A. It is fairly long for improvements all around the James Brown Drive, and it includes cold planing and overlaying and box widening of Route 2A and James Brown Drive. Installation of curb, sidewalk, drainage, and stormwater mitigation improvements. Stormwater mitigation, that's just a grass ditch. Is that right? Okay. Wow, pretty impressed. Grass ditch. New say. Yeah, but still, that's not really. New signage, pavement markings, and landscaping. Installation of new traffic signals at James Brown Drive and pedestrian flashing beacon at Bittersweet Circle. The project involved a significant amount of night work for the box cut widening, and other activities that required lane closures on this very busy roadway. was just a piece out of the contract, a detail that shows the box widening with the different layers, the dense graded in the sand, and then the lower under drain here. So a fair amount of earth to be moved and put back into place as we went along. That was mostly night activity. Then a lot of the daytime activity was limited to the restoration and ditching, and then also the pavement, and some of the signal work was done at daytime and some was done at nighttime. So here we're installing the first can for the mast arm foundation, and it's vibrated in. Later on, we put the rebar, the cage, we cleaned it out, put the cage in, and conduit hookups, and then anchor bolts, and then pour concrete. This was a very busy night here about a month ago, and we have the low bed here unloading the mast arm and the mast arm pole and lights and everything as individual, as one group, really, the mast arm and the lights on one. And then you can see further on, we're digging for the box cut. So all that was going on as many people sleep. There's a shot of some of the box cut widening across from Agway, roughly. And you can see it was fairly good sized hole that we carved out of there and put good select materials back in. And then some paving. This is near Morgan Circle here this week. And a little asphalt compaction going on there. So very busy roadway, and it's been probably not too bad an impact to the traveling public. Let's see then for the photo archives, got another signal project. This was quite a few years back. I don't recall exactly, but this is Lane at coming out of like where Walmart comes into Gardner Supply over there, and this is Marshall Ave. So that was done back probably in the early 2000s, I would guess. And they did a lot of that probably about the time Gardner Supply was put in, I would guess. So we have Neil Boyden was the public works director, and that's Alan, and Steve somebody. He was on a kind of electrical subcontractor we hired a few times. That's what we got. Be safe out there.